I'm Yo-Yo.
And I'm Katia. Welcome to our podcast.
Each week we learn from the experts about all things women's health and happiness.
We are two very normal, imperfect women.
Navigating this crazy thing called life.
And trying to stay happy and healthy while we do it. So, grab a cuppa.
Or tidy away that pile of laundry.
And enjoy our discoveries. Hello and welcome to another episode.
Welcome everyone. This is episode 62.
Yes, and today is another guest episode where we interview someone, an expert in their field, and today is an interesting one actually.
Yes, it's all about circadian rhythms.
Yes, which before this I'd heard of but didn't really know what they were about.
Yeah, well, I kind of knew what they're about, but not to the extent.
I just thought it was I don't know what awakened sleep time. That's what I think it was, but it's so much more intricate than that.
There's so much to it.
Yes.
And our expert today, Lynne Peeples, has been looking into it into great depth. She's talked to so many scientists.
Yes, she's brought up a book. She's an author of a new book, but she has delved into the nitty-gritty of this.
Definitely. So what Lynne Peeples is an author and a science journalist who covers a range of topics such as environmental health and public health.
Yes, she's always had an affinity towards nature since she loves watching the night sky and grew up spending a lot of time outside.
Her writing has appeared in The Guardian, Scientific American, in Nature, The Huffington Post, just to name a few.
Yes, and she was also an MIT Knight Science Journalism Fellow and holds a master's degree not only in biostatistics from the Harvard School of Public Health, but also in science journalism from the New York University.
So yeah, pretty well qualified. And she's talked to loads of 250 people for this book.
When you read the book, it's so jam-packed of references, studies, people she's talked to. She's left no stone uncovered.
No, yeah.
Unturned.
Unturned, yes.
Uncovered. Same.
But so her book, The Inner Clock, is fascinating, jam-packed with science, and also with her own personal journey through wading through all the science and doing the personal experiments.
She definitely did the experiments on herself.
Yes, she was a guinea pig. Such a guinea pig. And you'll learn all about that from her in this episode and also maybe from reading the book.
Yes. So thank you for Lynne for coming on, who called in to speak to us from Seattle.
Seattle. So she lives in Seattle at the moment, and she was telling us that it can get just as rainy as England.
Yeah, I think it's a bit gloomier, darker in the winter, but yeah, the rain, I think we match Seattle.
Yes. Speaking from a day today when it's rained non-stop for us, so that was quite nice to hear that we're not the only ones.
Yes, and Lynne Peeples, we recorded this back in September, and Lynne's book came out on the 24th of September, so right now it's out to purchase at all the links we've put on the show notes.
Yes, but before that, for now, we really enjoyed this chat with Lynne. We really hope that you'll enjoy it too.
Hi, Lynne. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today. And you're joining us from Seattle.
That is correct. It's a little dreary out. It's starting to become the typical Seattle fall, much like where you are.
Yeah, same snap.
I am sure it's not as dreary as it was today here in England.
It's not stopped raining.
It has not stopped.
Yeah. But you're here to talk about your new book, The Inner Clock, which explores the effects of the circadian rhythms and how they can affect us. So we're going to dive straight in, and first and foremost, can you explain to our listeners and to us what are circadian rhythms and what kind of effects that's a big question, I know, but what kind of effects, top line, do they have on us?
Sure, I'll try to give you we'll start with the Cliff Notes version here.
Yes.
So circadian rhythms, I mean, I didn't know this before I dove into this topic, but it's more than sleep. Right. So our bodies are filled with these tiny timekeepers. Nearly every cell in your body has a ticking clock, metaphorically. Right. And so these clocks are all coordinating together under direction from kind of a master clock in the brain. And they're priming your body to do the right things at the right times. So whether that's to sleep, to digest food, to fight away encroaching parasites or viruses, or helping you to be at your fastest to sprint away from an enemy. All these things are happening kind of on the clock because your body can't do everything at all times, right? So there's optimal times for all these things, and that's where the circadian rhythm evolved to benefit basically all life. We found that nearly all life investigated has clocks. So these have created circadian rhythms. However, so circadian actually stems from the Latin circa, meaning around, and diem is day. So these are not precision timepieces. They don't tick at exactly 24 hours a day. So they need regular calibration and needs regular input from the environment, from your behavior to stay synced with each other and with the sun. And that's where light and dark comes into play. When you eat food, all these things can help your rhythms stay synced or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that kind of thing is, so when people have habits, actually it can be quite a good thing if they're habits that work with their cells, like digestion. If you eat the same time that's optimum for you, that circadian rhythm is actually going to help in the long run. So because you're digesting at the time your cells are kind of primed to digest.
Right. They're anticipating that food coming in and they're ready to handle it. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
And in your book, you also mentioned you've reviewed so much research, and every chapter will have little bits of research dotted here and there, and also that we don't just have one master clock in the body, don't we? We have lots of little clocks everywhere.
Yes.
Trillions
Trillions of them.
Can you describe a bit more of that? Like, so, because everyone think, okay, you have your body clock, but yeah, describe more about why we have more, and yeah.
Right. And some of this is just like emerging research. So, I mentioned a master clock in the brain, which sort of acts as a conductor of a symphony of clocks throughout the body. However, we've also learned that the conductor isn't necessary for all the clocks to tell time. They can kind of do it on their own. So we've learned that, like the liver clock, sometimes will listen to, the messages from the incoming calories over what the master clock might be telling it based on, because the master clock's connected to your eyes, which takes in information from light and dark. We can get into some more of that later, but we do know that clocks can like play solo and tick on their own accord, but generally speaking, they want to be synced together and coordinate, because these our organs want to work together to do the right things, right, at the right times. So yeah, we are filled with trillions of tiny timekeepers, I say, and it is, it's more than just one clock.
Yeah.
And based on the kind of, you did your own amazing research, your own experiment. Do you want to, which was the start of the inner clock? Do you want to explain how you got involved in this and that kind of the kind of what you went under, what you did to yourself?
Sure. So, I did a few little experiments, but the big one that I opened the book with is I found a former Cold War era bunker in Arkansas that had been purchased by this guy and renovated into an Airbnb. So it's pretty luxurious, but it was a bunker. And I was seeking a place where I could hide from daylight and any clocks and any people, anything at all that could tell my body what time it is. Because I just wanted to see what my own rhythms would do. What is my natural, cadence of my clocks? And, inevitably I knew that they would probably get messed up because I'm no longer going to have cues to help them recalibrate, right? So I wanted to see, what does that feel like? What's going to happen? And I decked myself out with all kinds of devices. I had, in addition to like a Fitbit and Oura Ring and a Garmin, I had temperature sensors that I taped all over my body, or a continuous glucose monitor, as well as a light sensor, just to see what kind of light I was getting. But I did also tune, this was a fancy bunker, I tuned all the LED lights to a very dim red, because I had learned that red light doesn't affect your circadian rhythms like other wavelengths of light. So I had all that, and then I had scientists at the end help analyze the data to see what had happened inside my body.
Yeah,
so
fascinating.
So the reason you turned out the light and the environment are the cues for you for all our clocks to recalibrate. And that's why people kind of get confused, because they think we're in tune to this light and dark, when actually it's more of a cue than a definite time frame that we need to stick to. Is that right? Because some of us all have different kind of 24-hour clocks, so to speak.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at is, we all our clocks tick a little differently. And we call this kind of your chronotype. Okay. So some of us, if you've heard about, early birds and night owls, that has to do with how fast or slow your clocks are ticking and how your body calibrates with the sun. For some people, they need less light, and it'll have a different effect on how their clocks are ticking. So all that together, this is getting a little into the weeds, but that together is defining your chronotype. And so, if you are an early person, like that together is what kind of, gets you up earlier in the day and makes you get sleepier earlier in the evening. It's this connection, right?
I want to get into the chronotype a bit more in a bit, but I just kind of going back to all the data that you said, all the scientists got. That sounds fascinating. From all the stuff, was there one thing that maybe surprised you most of how the lack of light and cues of the daytime affected your body?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that jumps out in mind, maybe because it makes me giggle a little bit, is that I mean, after a few days, after my body really did kind of get out of whack based on the data I later saw, I was getting up to pee many times a night. Because that is one of the rhythms that we have, is to help us sleep through the night. The bladder and our digestion, everything, like it slows down, it shuts off certain things so we can sleep through the night. But when those get out of sync and things are doing the wrong things at the wrong times, then that goes out the window.
That's so interesting.
So yeah.
So basically, you were like me. I am currently pregnant. You were like a pregnant woman getting up 4 times a night.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow.
So is that because you're? Is that because it doesn't know when the right time for you to sleep, so it doesn't shut off properly, and it's just like you're gonna have to keep going because I don't know what I'm doing?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, it's like it's looking for those cues, right? So usually, I mean, one thing that can throw that off is if you eat too late, then your body is like, it was expecting that earlier. If you're eating late, it's going to be digesting and doing all these things. It's going to take longer for that system to shut down and let you sleep. Yeah. So yeah, it's tied together.
So fascinating.
How did you get into this, and what made you do like this book?
Wow, I mean, we could go back to my childhood, I suppose. I think it was been percolating subconsciously. Really? So I grew up here in Seattle, and like your climate, it's gloomy a lot of the year, and we're at such a high latitude that the days in the winter get really short. So I definitely noticed from an early age that like my mood and energy levels changed across the year. And then in high school, like I don't know what time your high school start there, but we started before 7:30. It was really early. And for many weeks of the year, I'd arrive at school in the dark, and, I'd leave the gym after basketball practice after school in the dark, and you just saw very little daylight. And, I struggled. I mean, wasn't that conscious of it, but, calculus didn't click, and like I felt sleepy a lot of the time. And then I went to college in Minnesota, where it was cold, bitterly cold, but it was really bright in the winters. There was clear sky, snow that reflected the sun. It was slightly lower latitude. I felt so much better, and calculus clicked. So I think that was sort of, in the background. And then I moved back to Seattle after spending time on the East Coast. And it was really, I was a freelancer at this point, not living with good circadian hygiene because I was inconsistent with when I ate and slept and all the things because I could. But I got invited to my hometown baseball team's stadium for this tour of new lighting they had put in. And as part of that tour, they took us into the locker room where they had installed these new LED lights that they were raving about that was supposedly could change in intensity and in color that would help energize the players before the games and then relax them after, and also help their circadian rhythms be strong. So I was like, what's this about? What are they trying to do? And does that have anything to do with how I've been feeling my whole life? Is there anything here? So yeah, I dove in, and since then, I mean, it's been kind of in the background, but the last 2-3 years, I've been
Wow.
obsessed with
Yes.
circadian
No.
rhythms. There's
I
touches so many things.
I can imagine that after all the research you've done for your book, that it would be difficult for you not to be obsessed right now. Like knowing, I guess how does your day look, for example? Like have you put any of this into practice for yourself? Could
Yeah.
you tell us maybe some of the tips that you've learned?
Like what you did before and what you do now,
Yeah, maybe
maybe.
how it looks different after you've learned about all the things that can help your circadian rhythm stay in tune.
Especially now you're back in Seattle.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. It
Back
takes
in-
a little
back in the
extra work
gloom.
to compensate here. Yeah. I mean, like I said, before that trip to the baseball stadium, I was, I was rarely leaving my apartment. I mean, I am very fortunate that I have, a nice picture window by my desk. So that's huge. But I would, yeah, I'd roll out of bed, like sit at my computer, eat like at random times every day. And that, yeah, morning, the time I got up in the morning would fluctuate greatly across the week. Then the time I would go to bed fluctuated greatly. I probably lived with pretty consistent amount of light, like not a lot of variation. So the things that I implemented that I point to when people ask, what should I do? And there's three things. I've added contrast to my life. So now in the morning, first thing I try to get outside, even if it's like overcast, a little dreary. I have a little balcony that's covered, and I'll like maybe sit out there in the morning with my coffee, or go for a walk to a coffee shop, or get out a little bit, because that's key, that first light in the morning. And then throughout the day, like try to get as much daylight as possible. Make sure I'm like looking out the window, getting outside for, as one scientist put it to me, circadian snacks. So
Ah,
I think that was
I
kind of
like it.
fun. So snack throughout the day, and then actually eat, breakfast and lunch at about the same time, and dinner. And that dinner I have made earlier. So there's contrast, and then constrict meal times to a narrower window during the day, and especially cutting off, about at least 3 hours before bed, which
Mm.
is hard to do if you want a social life
Yeah.
sometimes. But
Both food and drink? Like for
anything with
water and
calories,
stuff?
water's
Anything with
fine.
calories.
Water's fine,
Okay.
tea's fine. But as scientists explained to me, is yeah, any calories, anything that your body needs to, digest, metabolize. So that's gonna like keep those awake, right? And you want about 3 hours before bed, you want the lights to start dimming, you want less blue wavelength light, you don't want calories coming in. You just want to tell all your systems that okay, the day is through, it's time to wind down and get ready for the next day. So
So you start to
Yeah.
give yourself the cues that you kind of, society's kind of started to help engineer out of our lives,
life.
basically.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah, try to
Wow.
reinfuse those cues.
Yes,
So
yes.
contrast, constrict, and consistency. So that consistency piece is huge.
Yeah. Okay, that's fascinating.
Wow, that is. And have you seen a big effect? So, because in your book you talk about this when you did the experiment, things like performance, your mood, your kind of when you felt like kind of alert to do things, everything kind of just went a bit discombobulated.
Yes.
So, and I know you talked about sports in your book about how it does, and you mentioned the baseball stadium. Then it was baseball, wasn't it? And how a lot of sports teams, especially in America, look at this as well because performance is massively effective. Have you seen a big result just on like the day to day?
Yeah, I'd say so. So I think on a few levels, I mean, I found, in tracking the data, I've been like in a couple years of data now looking at my sleep. I mean, sleep trackers aren't perfect, but they give you trends, right? And I found that, yeah, with those nights that I do, I cut off eating and alcohol, within 3 hours of bed. My sleep is so much higher quality. I get more REM sleep. I wake up feeling much more refreshed. I sleep through the night better. I don't get up to pee as much. And then, yeah. And then once your rhythms are, or have kind of hit a happy place and you're like actually have pretty consistent days when you're not using an alarm clock, which I know is hard for a lot of people to do. But in that case, then you can start really paying attention to your ebbs and flows throughout the day in alertness. And, do you have a pep in your step and feel like, want to be active? And I definitely noticed, like, for me, I'm pretty much in the middle of the chronotype curve. I'm not an early bird. I'm not really a night owl, even though I used to think I was. I'm kind of in the middle. And I find that I'm like freshest and most alert in the late morning. So I have like a 2-3 hour window where I feel like that's my most productive time. So I try to use that time to actually do the things that require thinking. So if I'm, writing a book, which I was doing, I pound out during those hours and try not to distract myself. And then, like a lot of people, mid-afternoon, there's like a natural circadian slump. Maybe I'm not trying to do anything that's too mentally rigorous at that hour.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then,
I imagine you might not have a coffee then, probably, like
so,
most people
yeah,
would.
No,
Or chocolate.
Right. I try to cut off I have like a cup or two in the morning, and that is it. But mid-afternoon, instead of a coffee, I try to either allow myself a short power nap, like 15 minutes. Especially like one trick that I learned is if you do that and then, get outside for, a good blast of daylight, those blue wavelengths of light, that combo is, I feel like, anecdotally, at least as strong as a cup of coffee. And there's actually some data to back that up too. So yeah, that's my replacement.
Oh, amazing.
So you've mentioned light a few times. You just mentioned it then with the blue light and going outside. That is a big thing, isn't it? The way your eyes process light, and how you say how like now with everything, all the screens, and even eco-friendly glass you mentioned, didn't you? Is such a big thing. Could you explain a bit about that? Because it's big to this.
Right. I mean, so I think it really goes back to, so our eyes, we have a visual system, which is what we learn about in school, rods, cones, create your visual world, paint a picture. And that is very different than this other system, way more recently discovered, this third photoreceptor in the eye that picks up on the intensity and color of light to tell your clocks what time it is. And that's happening behind the scenes. You're not conscious of this. And so, but it's taking in light differently. So if you're indoors, it might feel bright to your visual system, but it's not in most places, unless you have some of the really new fancy tunable LED lights, which we can maybe talk about. But most of us indoors, we're not getting the quality and quantity of light that those third photoreceptors need to know that it's daytime. And that's because of, our light bulbs are not pumping out the right wavelengths or intensity. And then, even our windows, these energy efficiency coatings on windows, which are great for the environment, right? We need to be thinking about climate change and all these things. But one repercussion of that is they do filter out a lot of that blue wavelength and other wavelengths that have these biological effects. And it's not that they filter out all of them, but it's, it's a good chunk. So it's reducing the input to the third photoreceptor. Plus, you're indoors, and even in front of a window, you're not getting nearly as much as you would be outside.
Yeah. And also then you introduce screens of like iPhones, everything.
Right.
Or other phones are available, but so because that's not blue. What light is that?
Probably blue light as well.
Yeah, screens. Yeah. I mean, they make filters now, right? Like the nighttime shifts in the colors, which reduce some of the blue light. But they still, I mean, I think as scientists pointed out to me, the best thing to do is dim them. And if you have a blue light filter, great too. But yeah, we're getting this minimal light during the day, and then we're getting extra light at night, and we're reducing that contrast that our bodies need.
Yeah, it's kind of doing the opposite to what we should be doing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk a bit more about all that data. So you also were wearing an aura ring. Is this something to do with hormones? Or I've heard this with like cycle tracking.
No, it wasn't doing that. It was just one of my, I was tracking, heart rate.
Okay.
And sleep and those things. Like the others.
So is there any other scientific data-y finding that you can talk a bit more about?
From my underground experience? Yeah. I mean, it was fascinating to see all the rhythms for each of these systems and how they changed and shifted throughout my time underground. And really they started off pretty normal, according to scientists. They created some pretty pictures I was able to look at. And they started out coordinated, and then about day 5, they just went like off on their own, drifting. Every one of my rhythms kind of drifted a little longer, which typically happens if you're without access to light cues. And then they also like didn't drift at the same rate. So they just lost coordination with each other. I lost all coordination with the day above ground. And that's about when I started to feel the effects. And it felt like jet lag, right? Most of us have experienced that. It's just like that. You know, your gut doesn't feel great. Your head feels kind of hollow, headachy. You're just kind of groggy. Mood's a little lower. You know, it was harder to really sleep and know when to sleep. I was kind of all over the place. And
And you mentioned your book also, you're very clumsy.
Oh my gosh, yes. Because one day I kept dropping everything. And yeah, part of I was trying to teach myself to play harmonica and juggle down there because, you know, I had all this time to kill. and yeah, I mean, so my juggling skills really went down at that time.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. That's probably quite a good thing to do in your experiment, because one day juggling to the next day, it would be a good way to test coordination, actually. So,
right. And then also like throughout the day, how it changes, because that's a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about, sorry to move it on a little bit. So we kind of talked about how like everyone has a different chronotype, but does it matter who, like, is it by like driven by your gender, or is it driven by like your age? Does it change through life, or is it hormonally? Or is it just you are these three things and that's it?
Genetically determined? Like, what determines your
chronotype? All of the above. So So yeah, your chronotype is determined both genetically and by your behavior and the environment you put yourself in. And it does change throughout your life, and it is different if you're male or female. So when we're born, actually, I mean, even when we're in the womb, we start developing a little bit of rhythm. Usually, you know, mom's giving us rhythm. And then we're born, we are, you know, continue to get rhythm, but like we're not sleeping through the night, obviously. You're about to welcome a new one here. So
I know. Well,
I'm sure you're anticipating this.
What's my second? So I know all about those newborn days.
Oh, yes.
Days, nights.
All
into one.
Who needs to decide, day or night?
Yeah, they don't get that memo yet. There's just like, sleeping, eating. And then, so young kids, you know, finally those kind of level out. Young kids typically are kind of early risers on average, you know, early to bed. And then until adolescence hits, and then rhythms shift later. So both, there's this different circadian system and also the sleep homeostat, which is also involved, which I talk about in the book. These shift later for kids around when they hit adolescence, which is also the time, at least in the US, where we start school earlier in middle school and high school. Totally biologically backwards.
That's helping everyone achieve their greatness.
Yeah, right. Totally. And then that lasts probably, you know, early 20s or mid 20s, and then we kind of level off again. And then as we get older, our clocks shift yet again to get on a little more on the early side, but perhaps more importantly at that point, our rhythms just kind of dampen. So we don't have as much rhythm. And scientists are finding, you know, a lot of kind of the biological basis for that. I mean, it's everything from our eyes, you know, we get cataracts, which filter out some of that blue light that's coming in, you know, and there's brain changes and aging, but they're finding these things that also point to methods to kind of try to keep those rhythms strong, which is exciting.
Yeah. Imagine it's two directional. So getting older might dampen the rhythms, but if you can somehow keep the rhythms strong and varied, it could delay some of the things with aging. Yeah, potentially exactly. Two-way.
Exactly. Wow. Yeah, they're finding this potential two-way street. There's strong correlations. Well, I should, you know, I don't know if I should qualify strong, but there's correlations between dementia and circadian rhythm robustness. So again, as you said, it's likely to go both ways, but kind of either way, it suggests you can't lose by trying to have good circadian hygiene and try to force that rhythm, you know, for your body. And they're finding some benefits, men and women in assisted living facilities, given more rhythm, given more of that light dark contrast, are doing a lot better. They have less agitation, they sleep better through the night. It's really fascinating. So there's a powerful tool, both preventative and potentially to help people who are already in those stages of life. Yeah.
We hope you're enjoying this episode so far. We'd love to help more women out there, so please subscribe, rate and review, which helps more people find us. And share this episode with any friends who you think will enjoy it too. Thank you. And without further ado, here's the rest of the episode.
What about exercise? So I think from your past, you seem to be a keen exerciser and sports person yourself. But what about like how exercise plays a role in keeping our own rhythms strong? Does it have a big effect? Movement, general movement in the day? Because I imagine it's another cue that could tell your body it's day, it's light, it's time to move. And back in the day, hunt,
Right.
So, talk a bit more about what you know about the science on that.
Yeah, there's a few levels here. The first is just exercise generally is good for your rhythms. Whenever you do it, if you can do it consistently at that time, especially, that's a cue, to tell your body what time it is, and your body will be primed and ready to do it at that hour. But given that, it's also been shown that on average, we are most athletic in the late afternoon, early evening. So, depending if, where you are on that chronotype curve, but on average, that's when people break the most world records. They've done studies looking at like swim times are significantly faster in that late afternoon, early evening ballpark, which was super fun talking to athletes and these chrono coaches who are trying to help athletes to not only like adjust to jet lag if they're traveling for competition, but also kind of tricking their inner clocks to think it is that maybe late afternoon, early evening time, regardless of when the actual start time of the event or competition is. So their body is like ready to go and be at their best.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's pretty wild. Yeah.
I think that just shows how important like this conversation is, because at the high, everything comes first at the high athletic top performance level, then trickles down towards mere mortals.
Exactly.
Which the fact they're focusing on things like that and they're using it, the data and the science shows that it is quite important to be aware of.
Yeah, it makes a significant difference from the data. And for us mere mortals, there's other factors to consider. Like there's studies suggesting that morning workouts, maybe you're not at your peak performance, but it might be better for your body in reducing heart disease risk, stroke, burning body fat. After workouts might be a better option if you're worried about blood sugar levels. So your body system's reacting differently at different times of day to the same exercise.
Yeah. And I think psychologically, it might be useful to understand this, because if you do go out first thing in the morning, because it is very good for you, you can be a bit easy on yourself and you say, look, I don't have to break my PB right now. It's early.
Yeah, just being outside's good.
Just be gentle, but getting fresh air and getting some exercise is good.
Exactly. Yeah, it's win-win, right? Yeah, you get that third photoreceptor happy, you get your body. Yeah.
I'm going to ask something really random now, because the eye thing. I wear contact lenses. Does that affect the light?
It shouldn't, although...
You might not know, you're not an optician.
Actually a couple scientists were worried about the fact that a lot of lens makers, both for regular glasses and contact lenses, are adding that blue light blocking filter on them. So depending on whether or not yours have that, it could be filtering out some of the important photons.
I imagine it might be useful to have two pairs of lenses in the future. You could have the ones with the blue light blockers for the evening when you're watching television, and then like clear ones for the daytime.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know, until you said it then about the receptors, I hadn't even thought on like the glass, and I was like, hold on a second, I'm blocking, and the cataracts and things. Like I wear lenses every day. I'm blind. I'm quite blind, so that's why.
You're not blind. You've got.
Well, I won't be able to survive in nature if you took my lenses off me or my glasses.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, no hunting for you.
No hunting for me.
So let's delve a bit more into the whole chronotype thing. It's I think a lot of our listeners would probably feel quite relieved to hear that there are natural differences. And I think you mentioned something about how society is really set up for the early risers, and there are genuinely night owls it's not just people going to
You're
bed
not
too
just
late.
lazy. Yeah.
Yeah, not just lazy
Yeah.
people. Or could you go into maybe your views on the differences in how society is set up and what could be done differently to accommodate everybody?
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a really important point. There was a woman in Copenhagen that I spent some time with that's really, really passionate about this. And she's really trying to make awareness for this chronodiversity and trying to reduce kind of discrimination against night owls. She calls them B people. So there's like A people and B people. So yeah, we're biologically programmed to lean one way or another, or maybe you're like me and a little more in the middle. But there's also influences from how we behave in our environment. So you can exacerbate your night owlness if you don't get that morning light. If you stay up late with a light in your face and then sleep through the morning, and you can see how it could snowball and you could exacerbate your night owlness. But even if you are like on your best behavior, best circadian behavior, you're not just naturally programmed to get up like an early bird. And that like society has sort of been regimented into these early work start times, school start times that naturally favor early birds. And I think it's a really lost opportunity for kids, right? You don't have kids in class that are ready to learn. They're not going to remember material. You've cut off their REM sleep at night. So, their brain development, all these things is being hindered. And then they get into the working world. And if they are programmed as a night owl, are you forcing them to get to work early? You're cutting off their sleep. You're losing, their peak productivity time. If they, again, were able to naturally ride those waves throughout the day and work at the hours that they're most primed to work, you're going to get more out of your employee. So there is a movement among this woman, Camilla Kring, and others around the world to try to, bring this message to workplaces that there's a huge benefit here for both your bottom line and your employees' health and well-being to flex your hours, or take this into account. Maybe have your meetings in the middle of the day only, so you have some people coming into work a little later, some a little earlier, but everybody's there at one time to have your meeting. I think the COVID pandemic introduced and awakened people to a little more of this option and how it could work. So that was one of the few silver linings of the pandemic. But yeah, I think it's a huge opportunity to make people healthier, get more done, also have fewer cars on the road at the same time. I think there are a few layers of benefits here.
Absolutely.
As you said, people's potential is not being maximised, and that can also be really demotivating for people. But if it's just that you have, like, people can start between 8 and 10, and then if you start at 10, you leave 2 hours later, and the other people start at 8, come at the time that works for you. But if you're all in between core hours of 10 and 4, that's when most happens anyway. It doesn't, I get really frustrated about like companies that are just like, no, 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Right. And we'll make you stay late.
And
when
I guess
we need to.
for some really, really early birds, 9 is a very late time to start. Right. They're like, I'd love to be here at 7 and leave much earlier because I'm up anyway.
Right. Yeah. I talked to one guy. I mean, he's entrepreneur, so he's kind of working on his own, but his most prime productive hours are between like 5 and 7 in the morning or something. He's super early. Yeah, are you gonna just, if he was employed, are you just gonna waste those hours and not let him? And then he's he's dead to the world at like in the late afternoon, early evening. So you're not getting anything out of him then.
Yeah. I do think a really important thing that you said was like, although there is this natural variation, people can snowball it. Because I think there is also the temptation of maybe if you're a night owl or whatever, of just leaning on that and saying, well, like I have to go to bed at 12 and I have to sleep, or like 1, like really late, like if you really exaggerate it, I have to watch television until 11:30 because I'm just a night owl. So I think, like you said, there are the tendencies, but they can be exaggerated and enhanced by not listening to the cues. And
exactly. Yeah.
Because is it all that there's not actually that much difference when you say in everyone's circadian clock the full day, there's not a huge difference in the times, is it, that everyone runs through? Is it like just under 24 hours and just over 24 hours? People's fall between there, but they don't really tend to.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a huge spread when you take into account, just biology. And they've done some controlled experiments to find that. So really, and there was one interesting experiment where they took a group of young people out backcountry camping over like a winter weekend. So the days are, a little shorter. And they found that I think it was on average, these kids' rhythms shifted like 2.5 hours earlier just from like a weekend camping. So it's powerful. I mean, I think it was like 14 times more light that they got than they had gotten back home based on light sensors. So light's powerful. I mean, it's a good tool if you want to shift your rhythms earlier and try to get a little more coherence with the rest of the population.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about those, some people use special lights inside the house, especially in the wintertime if they have the seasonal affective disorder. And what's your take on those? Do we have to use caution, or are they great? Yeah, what's your opinion?
I think they're a powerful tool. I think, I mean, if it's dark out, if you're, especially, I've talked to people up in Alaska, right? Winter days are super short. You're not going to only live 4 hours a day for that time of year. And for the rest of us, yes, seasonal affective disorder is a real thing. So getting really bright and rich in blue wavelength light first thing in the morning, the studies show it can be really powerful antidepressant. It can help set your rhythms because it's that snowball effect, and it's so much easier to get into that snowball effect at that time of year because you don't. Yeah, there's just less light available to feed your through photoreceptor. So I think, I would follow directions of the manufacturer created the lamp, but I think they are a great supplement when needed, and the data suggests that they can be really beneficial
In the morning.
Yes,
Normally, not like it's 9 o'clock at night.
Oh no.
No, not before bed.
They give you a power boost in the morning, basically.
Yes. Otherwise, you're like us sitting here at the podcast. We've got these like LEDs blasting in our face, and I'm
not looking at them anymore.
No, it's late at night for us.
Yeah, you got to put in your blue light blocking contacts when you do the next interview. If you can get those,
I'll have some funky glasses next time I'm on.
If we could find some blue light blocking contacts, that'd be brilliant for the podcast evenings.
I know, yeah, both of us.
Because we can't wear glasses because it will be really reflecty.
Yeah.
We'll see like LEDs in our...
Yeah. What was I had in the question then? It's gone on my head.
Oh no.
Forgotten.
I just want to do say a funny story. So my parents in their house, so I'm quite excited to hear what you've said today and from reading stuff in your book, because I'm always having this discussion with my parents who like to switch all the lights off in the daytime because they're like, well, it's light outside. Why would we have the lights on inside? But it's not very light. Not much light comes in. And then they mostly have the curtains closed because the windows are very close to the roads. So it's really dim in the daytime, and I'm going around like putting all the lights on, and at night they put the lights really bright. It's like, but now it's dark outside, so we need lights inside. And I'm like, no, but it hurts my eyes. Dim the light.
So basically, they spend the day in dark and then brighten.
And that,
it's exactly. So typical. Oh my gosh, it's like. Yeah, I shouldn't call my dad out, but I will.
Let's all call our parents out here.
Yeah.
They need to read your book.
And my friends too. I feel like I've been annoying them probably very much, but I'm like, I go over in the evening, I'm like, what are you doing? You're blinding me. You need to turn your lights down.
It's so funny because it's such a simple thing that people just wouldn't think about. It's just to do with lights and things.
Right.
I remember my question. You mentioned the pandemic earlier, and I wanted to ask, this is really like more me hypothesizing and asking your opinion. So a lot of people had long COVID where they felt really tired, because am I right in thinking that when your immune system, like something like COVID, it can affect your immune system, and it can it knock your circadian rhythms off while your body's still fighting that? Is that what happens?
That is a good question, and I wish I had an answer. I don't know specifically about the links there, but I mean, your circadian system is driving like all these processes, right? It's your immune system is circadian. So there's a lot of connections there that were COVID related. I mean, even just thinking about like when you get vaccinated, when you get infected, when you test, all these things can change on the 24-hour clock. And I'd say, yeah, long COVID, I have to dig back into it, but there was actually some research I did that didn't make it into the book. But this was probably 2 years ago that I was doing it, so I don't remember all the details. But there's some fascinating research actually looking at long COVID and potential circadian links. And now you're reminding me of this. And maybe I can do a story on that because, yeah, I think I've suffered from long COVID to some extent myself. So some selfish reasons to go down that path.
It's just because it is such people. One of the things they say from long COVID is the tiredness and everything you're saying. And if it's affected that immune circadian rhythm, that it would knock it off completely. It could take a while to recalibrate what's happened because it's it was a huge virus for some people like to kind of battle with. Absolutely.
And yeah, I would I mean for those people, and I know a few who are still suffering too. It can't hurt to try to infuse more circadian cues into your life and just see if that helps, you know, battle that. Because again, if you're always fatigued, that's also easy to kind of snowball, you know, to lose some of those some of that hygiene. So
so potentially even people with chronic fatigue, or it's ME, it stands for a very long word that describes chronic fatigue. Potentially for them, a strategy could be trying to be really rigorous in that those cues, get the super bright light, be to the minute with your meals, and trying to really stimulate that day and night.
It helps a little bit.
I would definitely, can't hurt at all.
And there's poor souls with chronic fatigue. It's just the worst.
Sorry for like throwing that on there. We can do book part 2.
Yeah.
And to be fair to you, you did say you can't remember all the stuff. There is a lot of information in your book. Like so I don't expect you to remember everything because there is you jam packed it with studies and so much research. So
how many on kind of as a guess? How many references do you think you used?
Well, I went through and like figured out how many people I talked to, and it was at least 250. Wow. As far as like studies, gosh, I mean more than that, hundreds. I'm not.
Yes. It's.
I mean the references in the book is just a very small chunk of them. So
I'm sure. Otherwise, it would have another length of the actual book in a reference list.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay. So you mentioned very briefly alcohol, like when you're saying that in one of your own lifestyle changes, you now kind of don't have it close to sleeping. Can you remember any of the research around alcohol and effects, or can you speak a bit more about that, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has been shown to affect sleep. I mean, we all know, I mean, I was one of those that thought like a glass of wine before bed relaxes me, helps me fall asleep. There's truth to that, but the quality of your sleep is just going to be less. And that's what the science also says. I mean, you might wake up more in the middle of the night, and then even if you don't, it's blunting your body's ability to get into that deep REM sleep. So I mean, based on my own little experimental data, I did see that correlation. I would definitely cut down the minutes of REM sleep when I would drink later. And
wine with lunch.
So it's afternoon drinking.
Early happy hour. It's cheaper. I mean, now like if I can do it, I'm like my last like meal and drink, happy hour. And then try to cut out the calories after.
So we both have young children, and when we did New Year's, was it last New Year's? We had our New Year's celebration at like 5 p.m. So we got the neighbours round who all have young kids, and we all had champagne at like 5 or 6 p.m. and we all went home at 7 p.m.
I went to bed at like 10.
I went to bed?
Yeah. That's like you. Yeah, so we celebrated New Year on like, further in Asia somewhere.
But it was great for our circadian rhythm. The next day, we were great.
Yeah, I love it.
That's the way to do it.
It's great.
So when you wrote this book, what was your aim at the end of it? I just want to find like who did you want to aim at, and what would be your ideal like outcome from the book, from people reading the book?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is for everyone, which might sound kind of lame, but I really do think this is something that affects all of us. And, there's some parts of the population, shift workers and disadvantaged populations that are having even more trouble getting light during the day and darkness at night, and more prone to doing shift work. I think, there's certain groups that are really, really, truly affected, but I think all of us to some degree in the modern world are struggling, whether we know it or not, because this is subtle. It's kind of behind the scenes. You can't see it. You can't see your chronotype. You can't see your circadian rhythm. But I think it's something that we all can benefit from, even if it is just like tuning into when our, energy peaks and our alertness peaks and those things. So I think from, increasing productivity and performance to improving our overall health and long-term longevity, I think it could help all of us. So I guess I was writing this to, my friends that keep their lights on at night and my dad and to myself, like, what can I do to help fix my broken clocks?
Yeah. Especially, I guess, if you live in countries that we all do, that can get very rainy and dark, especially in the winter months.
And you don't want to go outside.
Yep.
For that fresh, But yeah, I think, it's fair to say that everybody can take things away from this book. And I think everyone, as you said, some people are very much like can put their head in the sand and like pretend, oh, I'm a night owl. Like, so I'm also going to call my mum here, who stays up to like, she goes to bed, does like her bedtime routine. It takes about an hour, and then she's like on her phone. She's like, I'm just a night owl, so I won't sleep till like 1 a.m. But she likes to sleep in, and I'm like, she's like, I've always been like that. But she might have always been like that, but she didn't always then exasperate it by being on her phone.
I guarantee she wasn't like that when you guys were young. When you guys were like toddlers.
Yeah, probably not. Actually,
Probably not. Yeah. But so speaking again, chronotype, you did mention quickly men and women differ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In what way do they tend to differ?
So on average, women are earlier than men. And testosterone is partially to blame, as I understand. Oh. And estrogen helps also make our rhythms more robust. So we benefit from that until we hit midlife.
Oh.
Yeah. So some really interesting research. There's a woman in Kentucky I talked to who is studying just that, because there is, this correlation between, a lot of things that happen to women in midlife, but our rhythms, they dampen once we lose that estrogen. And she's found that drives more erratic eating. So like the consistency of meal times changes and just overall the rhythm change. And there's, metabolism consequences of this, right? And then that's, it's midlife when metabolism, metabolic disease starts to rise. So diabetes, obesity, and those things. So she's wondering if trying to, I can't remember, she's directly studying, the estrogen replacement, if that helps with that. But she's also looking at time restricted eating, which is a term given to the idea of kind of constricting the hours that you eat during the day. So forcing these women into like that kind of an eating pattern, if that will mitigate that impact. So yeah, all that to say, estrogen, testosterone influences your rhythm. And that is why, it can be, one of the many struggles that women have in midlife and on is because of potentially circadian rhythm disruption.
Our friend estrogen leaves us, or becomes less. We love estrogen, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
It does a lot of good things.
Oh,
but thankfully, hormone therapy, they were finding that's safer and perhaps even more useful than we thought. So
yeah,
there's lots of options there. And also anything that you can do yourself and have control over. That's not, like controlling your eating times alongside that HRT. If you do that, it will help you. So.
Right.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, it reminded me, there's also studies suggesting like oral contraception may mess with rhythms.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So something to be, aware of.
Yeah.
Not, speaking, pro or con of oral contraception, because obviously it has a place, but that is what has been found that can.
Well, funny. I went back on that recently to trial it, thinking experiment. Well, it wasn't. I actually wanted to go back on it because I thought I'd be fine, because I used to take it before children, blah blah blah. But it was the worst experience I think I've ever had, and I stopped after 10 days because I was sad person. Everything went out of whack, and I was like, if this can just affect me in 10 days, I think I should just stop.
Yeah, probably good call.
Yeah,
reminded me of it.
It was an experiment to try and make you feel better,
It did not make me feel
but
better.
it was like the opposite. Yeah. Interesting.
But yeah. So your book is actually we're out this week. We were recording,
Yes.
so when people are listening, it's out to buy now.
Yes.
Do you know where it's? Do you know where it's been published? You've got in the US and the UK.
US
And
and
where
UK.
can people buy it?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it should be available most places you buy your books. Because I was going to say, I can send people to my website, lynnepeeples.com, which has links to a bunch of places to purchase. Those are probably US based, but Bloomsbury in the UK is also my publisher there. And you can look up The Inner Clock, Bloomsbury, Peoples, you'll find plenty of places to purchase.
Find it.
Yes, absolutely. And when we publish this, we will add some links to where we can find it.
Awesome.
So I'm sure we could probably find an Amazon link on there as well.
Yeah,
usually.
Bloomsbury normally do it to like all the good retailers will take it. So
brilliant.
And so you've mentioned your website. Is that how people can get in touch and support your work? What was your website address again?
Yeah, lynnepeeples.com. And
okay.
lots of information there. You can, add yourself to my email list, see my my appearances and such. Yeah.
Perfect.
Amazing. Thank you.
And are you active on social media as well?
I'm more and more. I'm trying to be. But yes, I am on Facebook. I'm on X. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn. You can find me there as well.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Super. And we just have a closing question that we like to ask all our guests, and you can take this in whatever way you want. So what, in your very personal view, is health and happiness?
Oh, yes. Health and happiness, I mean, they go hand in hand. And I think supporting our health supports our happiness. Supporting our happiness supports our health. Supporting our circadian rhythms supports both. I mean, it is mental and physical health implications involved with your rhythms. So, I mean, I might be a little biased. It might be what I think about a lot lately, but yes, I truly believe that that's, foundational. And
but you feel happier since you've been doing your 3 tips. Listen to your cues.
Try that again.
You feel happier since doing your cues, listening. So you're the proof happiness comes from, and your health comes from your circadian rhythms.
Yes.
Oh, and so speaking of happiness and your personal kind of lifestyle changes, when it gets to the dark winter months, do you see a difference now compared with years ago when you didn't know all of this stuff?
I certainly think so. I mean, there's the placebo effect, right?
But there is.
But I mean, so I'm just so much more aware. But yeah, I think, I mean, it's, the days are getting shorter. It's getting darker out there. I feel it coming. I'm not looking forward to it, but I feel so much more prepared with these tools. And I feel like, last winter, much more bearable, just making sure I'm diligent about getting that light and still getting outside. Because even if it looks dark out there, it's way brighter than in here. So
that's a good point, actually, because today it was raining a lot. And I was trying to convince myself to go for a walk anyway.
Yes.
And I didn't in the end, but I should have. But even going for a walk in the rain.
But you dropped off Ashley.
I did walk to the nursery in the morning, but I was going to go for a lunchtime walk, and I backed out.
Don't blame you.
But even if I had gone for a walk with the grey skies in the rain, that would have still been really good for my circadian light exposure. So it's a good point to kind of get out to all our listeners as well. Get out despite it not being sunny.
Right. Yeah, it's harder, but worth it. Worth it. Your clocks will thank you. Yes.
Super. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to mention that you didn't get a chance to mention?
Oh gosh, I mean, yeah, read my book. No, it was a plug. There's so many fun examples just from I'm going to throw this out there, given that, you're about to have another baby.
Yeah.
But I found it fascinating to learn that breast milk, in the morning is very different than breast milk at night. So if a woman is pumping her milk, to then bottle feed it to her baby later, one tip, I mean, I know you're juggling so many things as a new mom, but if you can label AM or PM when you pump your milk, then you're giving your baby, melatonin rich milk at night, cortisol-rich milk in the morning rather than flipping those and potentially making sleep even harder.
Thank you.
Oh, good tip.
I kind of had heard that once, but that memory was a very faded memory. So I would not have put that into action if you hadn't just told
I
me
didn't
that.
realise it was things like the melatonin would be in it, and that's what helps. Wow. Our bodies
Yeah.
are incredible.
And
eh?
other hormones
Yeah.
too, but like that's stuff that's giving the baby cues of time of day when it's in the womb, and then mom's still trying to help the baby's rhythm. So
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Super. Thank you for that. It's
Yeah,
very
of course.
interesting. But yeah, I think we've taken a nice hour of your day, and
yeah,
for
you just
you,
get outside now.
for you, it's
That's
the
right.
morning time. So you've had your like active brain time talking to us, and for us it's evening. So
Yeah.
we need to get out of these lights.
Yes, turn off those lights.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you, and thanks for taking the time.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely rest of your day.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back. We really hope you enjoyed that amazing chat with Lynne.
Oh, it was so nice to chat to her. She's so lovely.
Yeah, she is. It was just, she knows her stuff. So it was like, whatever we asked, she generally knows the science behind it, but it was just also a nice chat.
Yeah, I thought that.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. It's just, and do you know what? I'll talk about Weekly Waffle, actually. I always do this. Oh, it's not really that much of a spoiler. But I always just, I get so excited, but I'm going to hone it.
We have so much we want to say, but we generally leave our own interpretation of things for the Thursday Weekly Waffle. So we shall zip it and not say too much.
Yes.
Keep those juicy details for Thursday.
My mouth is... I just get so excited. But yeah, we'll keep all that. But we hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you learned something new and took some good tips away. So if you're struggling with your mood, these are some great tips to try and like pop into your daily routine.
Absolutely. And we'd love to hear if you do decide to do something different in your daily routine, just get in touch.
To reset your cues.
Yeah, maybe let us know on Instagram or via email or whatever, because it would be so interesting to know if we have changed your perspective on something with some of our...
Changed your life.
Change your life. We want to change your life. We'd love that if our episodes could actually help people reevaluate their lifestyle in a way.
Yeah, I think so.
Let us know.
Yeah. And it's not us saying, it's experts are saying this. Is
Exactly.
the whole point of this.
Exactly. We're not the experts, but we were on this journey with you.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, yeah, and if you have any questions for Lynne herself, we are always in contact with all our experts. So just ask us, we can ask Lynne for you, and we can answer those questions on another episode. So, for now...
Yep, for now we shall see you on Thursday.
Have a lovely rest of your day.
Thanks so much for listening all the way to the end.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email us on hello@healthandhappinesspodcast.com.
Or we'd love to connect with you on our Instagram, Facebook or TikTok pages.
You'll find the links to all our socials and more on our website, www.healthandhappinesspodcast.com.
And lastly, before you go, please give our podcast a rating and a review. It really helps others find us.
See you next week.
Bye.